Today's our Tuesday real estate investing
Zoom.com
Zoom.com
Zoom call, where
Zoom
we get
call,
together with
where we get
investors,
together
new
with
ones,
investors, new
experienced,
ones,
wholesalers,
experienced
bird doggers,
wholesalers, bird doggers,
get into
people want to
investing,
get into
seasoned
investing,
pros
people are
looking for
seasoned
deals.
pros looking for
We get
deals.
together to do
We
two
get
things:
together
to
to
try
do
to
two
make more
things: to try
income
to make more income
and to
and
increase our wealth.
to increase our
We're
wealth.
excited today to have a
We're excited
special
today to have a
guest.
special
Before I
guest.
get into this, I'm going to pitch
Before I
two
get into
things
that, I'm going to pitch two
real
things
quickly that are
real
upcoming that I
quickly
think
that are
will be a
upcoming. I think
benefit to all
will be
those
a
here in
benefit
the
to
LA
all those
area.
here in the
In
LA area.
particular, because we're
In
all, I think,
particular, because we're all, I think,
forward to some live
looking forward to
events.
some
Real
live
estate
events.
agent,
If you're a real estate
on
agent,
Thursday
on
at 5
Thursday
o'clock,
at 5
there's the
o'clock,
Real Estate Agent
there's the Real
Circle
Estate Agent
Network, and
Circle
that is at
Network, and that is at the
it's a beer place. What is that
it's a beer
called?
place. What is that called?
All Season Brewing
All
Company,
Season
fantastic
Brewing Company,
place
fantastic
on La
place.
Brea,
On the
south of
Brea,
Wilshire, that old
south of
Firestone
Wilshire,
building
that
got
old
redone
Firestone
to
building got
enormous
redone to an
bar,
enormous bar,
enormous brewery with fresh
enormous
beer.
brewery with
Real
fresh
Estate Agents
beer. Real
Networking,
estate agents
meet your
networking.
colleagues, meet
Meet your
your people
colleagues,
from other
meet your
companies,
people from other
and we do that
companies, and we
Thursdays
do that
once a month
Once a month
from 5 to 7
from 5
p.m.
to 7
There's no cover
p.m.
charge,
There's no cover
but love to
charge,
have you come and show
but love to
up.
have you come and
And
show
then the
up.
other thing
And then
is
the
we
other
have
thing is we
coming up
have
October 31st,
coming up
which is a
October 31st,
Sunday,
which is a
the
Sunday,
Los Angeles Real Estate
the Los
Grand
Angeles Real
Expo.
Estate Grand Expo.
We had last
We
week on
had
Thursday
last
night,
week on Thursday night,
LARIC, the LA Real Estate
LARIC,
Investment
the
Club,
LA Real
had their
Estate
first live
Investment Club,
event.
had their first live
Over
event.
250
Over
people at
250 people
UCLA.
at
This is kind of
UCLA.
the same group
This
with
is
two
kind of
other
the same
groups.
group with two other
Expect
groups.
5 to 600
Expect
more
500 to 600
people.
more
It's all day on
people.
a
It's
Sunday,
all day on a
Halloween Sunday
Sunday,
the
Halloween
31st,
Sunday the
at the
31st, at the
Screwballs
Skirball
Museum. No
Museum.
charge,
No
free parking.
charge, free
Can't beat
parking.
that.
Can't beat
9 to
that.
6, so all
9
day
to
long,
6.
there's
So all
speakers
day
going
long,
on, an
there's speakers
expo,
going on, an
all kinds of
expo, all
vendors.
kinds of
And if you
vendors.
want any more
And
information,
if you
there,
want any more information, there are
LAGrandExpo.com for more
LAGrandExpo.com
details.
for more
Okay?
details. Okay?
So let me turn the share
So let me
off.
turn the share off.
And we're excited
And we're
today to
excited today
introduce our
to
guest
introduce
speaker.
our guest speaker.
Let me see.
Let me
Why
see
am I
where am
not
I here?
share? Stop share.
Stop share.
There we go.
There
We're
we go.
excited to
We're
have
excited
our,
to have
our
our
guest speaker here,
introduce our guest
John
speaker here,
Kasman.
John
John,
Kasman.
I
John,
met him
I met
through
him through
his podcast. He does a
his podcast. He
multifamily.
does a
He's out of
multifamily.
the Midwest.
He's
He
out in the
hosts the
Midwest. He
Chicago
hosts the Chicago
Multifamily Club. He works
Multifamily Club, and he
as
works
an investor,
as an investor,
syndicator, coaches, new investors.
new
So John
investors.
Kasman, welcome to
So
our
John
call today. Thank
Kasman,
you so
welcome
much
to our
for
call
joining
today. Thank
us.
you so much for joining us.
Hey, Bill, thank you for having me. And you're right. We met on my show, and I'm just checking here because you're going to be coming out, I believe, this Friday. So let me just quickly look. Nope, you're going to be out next Friday. So your episode is going to come out next Friday. So we'll make sure we share the link with you and your team when that's live. But I'm excited to be here. It's a great day. It's sort of cool off here. You know, I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, so not out there on the West Coast with you all. But it's starting to cool off, but not as bad. You know, it's just a little, nice little fall breeze, the leaves starting to change colors. It's a fun time of the year for us.
Well, I was a little sweaty
when I went out
to the pool at noon today. Had good swim in outdoors. Good. So no. Well, you're right now though. You're in Los Angeles, California.
You're enjoying the good weather here with our
But
people.
we do have people here from all over the country. But most of the people on the call
here in
Southern California,
and I think
a lot of people are interested in
investing in multifamily. A lot of people
investing out of the area. So before we go there, let's just give a little bit of your background. Who are you, and then how'd you get started in real estate?
Yeah, so I spent 15 years in corporate America. Did marketing for big brands, large companies. I was at General Motors for about 4 or 5 years, and I was there when we went through bankruptcy. So that really shaped my view of corporate America and, really my path forward. I moved over to the agency side, doing advertising and marketing campaigns. So I worked on, Buick, Nike, Coors Light, Mountain Dew, all these brands. But coming out of that bankruptcy situation with GM, I realized that it didn't matter what company you worked for. At any moment, it could be taken away from you, whether it's politics, whether it's the company itself. It didn't matter. So I started to invest on the side to build up my own personal portfolio. And while it was a smart strategy, I had a huge flaw that I did not account for. And I kept running out of my own money. I would save 5 figures, 6 figures to go buy a property. My wife and I, we'd save our money, buy a property, and then we'd have to wait, save up more money, and do it again. And eventually we realized that we could actually help other people who were looking to do the same kind of thing. And we started to do what's called apartment syndication. And just really simple, if you're not familiar with apartment syndication, all it is pooling resources together to go out and buy an apartment building. So we partner with other investors to buy larger apartment buildings. We have been a general partner in over 1,000 units up to this point, and we continue to help other people invest in real estate.
Wow. Okay, so
Okay,
there's
there's
a
a
lot
lot
to
to
break
break
down.
down. So let's talk about the first time,
the first investment
the
you
first investment you made in real estate.
Before you wrote the first
before
check,
you wrote the first
and after you
check,
wrote that first
and
check,
after you wrote that
what
first
changed?
check,
Because like a
what
lot of
changed? Because
investors,
like a lot of investors,
especially those with good jobs,
especially those with good jobs in corporate America,
you're not used to
you're
putting
not
money
used
at
to
risk.
putting
Generally
money at
speaking,
risk.
what
Generally
was that
speaking.
like, and how'd you
What
get
was
over
that
that?
like, and how'd you
that
get over
first hurdle of
that
making
first
an
hurdle of making an investment?
I cheated. I absolutely cheated. So there's a term that many of your audience might be familiar with. It's called house hacking. Well, I didn't hear this term 10 years ago. So what we did was, I was living in Chicago at the time, and we were renting. And I had this bright idea. I thought I was like this, I don't know, this maverick who came up with this brilliant idea where I was going to buy a duplex. I was going to live in one unit and rent out the other unit, let them pay the mortgage, and I was essentially going to live rent free. Now, I was paying $1,500 in rent. So in my mind, if I could, just lower that, right? It's like if I could live and pay less than $1,500, it was even. So the reason I say I cheated is I didn't have to worry about the investment side as much. I was concerned on the landlord side. I was greatly concerned there. But on the investment, I was already paying $1,500 a month, period. So if I could get out of there and only pay $1,000 or $700, it was a win in my mind. So we ended up, we rented it out. I think initially we were paying about $900 a month to cover the mortgage and the other expenses. That ended up decreasing over time. We built up some equity, but that was a cheat way to get in because I didn't have to sit there and do the analysis paralysis. Certainly, we looked at a bunch of properties and a bunch of deals, but I was threatened with the idea of being homeless. The landlord I had, I kept trying to renew my lease, but I only wanted like a 3-month increment, and he refused. So he basically said, when your lease is up in June, you're either signing a year-long lease or you're out. You've got to the end of, and I think that was like in April, right? And he's like, you got into this month to figure it out, but I'm not trying to deal with this. So, I mean, geez, we took real action at that point. We put in the offer and we got the property.
Now, you say you were paying $1,500 before you started. $900 net cost.
The net cost
after I imagine your tenant.
You
had some vacancy somewhere,
right?
I mean, what was that like?
So the great thing, so the great thing for us is we did an excellent job of managing. We had a lot of where we lived and where we bought this property.
Can I tell you why?
There was a ton of interest.
Because you had to eat.
Had to eat. Listen, had to eat. But then also the thing about house hacking that's a really cool trick is you're playing both sides of it because you're still looking for a home for yourself. So you're not going to go to the roughest areas possible. You're going to go to a desirable place where you want to live, and you're going to find other people who desire to live in a similar place. So if you can maintain that home, if you can price your rents appropriately, you should be able to get in front of any lease renewals. And in Chicago, is pretty common is, 2 months out, you go to that resident and say, hey, look, your lease is going to be up at the end of, 2 months from now. Do you plan on renewing your lease, or do you want to move out? We really didn't offer a month-to-month option. So because of that, I had 60 days to line up and get the next resident. And I mean, I think the time we owned that property for 8 years, I think that first floor unit might have been vacant a total of 6 days in the 8 years that I owned it.
Nice. So you're in the property. Now, and again,
just to break it down,
your difference of $900
didn't cover, say,
capitalization,
repairs, and
expected repairs. Like you covered the repairs that came in, but as owner now, you'd have money set aside in reserves or something. So you kind of got away with it. No major damages while you're in the beginning.
It sounds like.
Well, when I think within the second month of ownership, we had to replace all the furnaces. So it's just one of those things where things happen and cost you money. And, we planned on it. I think for us, we had planned on putting 20% down because that's what we were advised. And we were surprised. And I don't know if it still works the same way, but at that time, we were able to get an FHA loan and only put 3.5% down. Yep. So we actually had about $50,000 that we had saved in anticipation of needing this for a down payment that we didn't know what to do. So we're like, all right, well, I guess if anything does pop up, this money is here. So we had, whether you want to call it reserves or whatever, it was accidental, to be honest. But we had money set aside. So when those things popped up, it wasn't really a big deal. And, as we go forward, the thing we learned was, hey, you better anticipate that for any property that you buy, because you need to have reserves. Things happen, and you want to have money set aside to address those things. You want to anticipate repairs, even if you don't have any repairs, even if everything's going swimmingly, it's a brand new property, everything looks great, it's been fully renovated, you still need to have a budget for repairs, for some capital expenses that may pop up. And if you do that, you're investing in a way to protect yourself.
So you did cheat.
In
a sense. It worked out. So you're in this property.
And you're feeling pretty good after a while, even after
you have reserves
from the down payment you didn't put
So
down.
what caused you planned all along to buy additional property?
Or was this it for a while, or how'd that happen?
No, absolutely, we did. And this was like the test run, right? Because this gave me a chance to, kind of pretend to be a landlord, right? I had a resident underneath me. We were very concerned about actually being the landlord. I didn't want them to know that we own the property, so we kind of made up this whole backstory about, no, we're just the managers. So we did that, but it's tough when you live upstairs, right? So either way, I had these fears that they would bang on my door in the middle of the night to come fix something. And ultimately, what we were able to do is just lay out the expectations, and people are pretty professional. If you're playing in a B class, A class area, again, where you would want to live, if it's desirable, you're likely to attract those kind of residents. So if you tell them, hey, listen, if it's an emergency, by all means, bang on the door, call me, whatever, let me know. But if your toilet's running, that doesn't require a 9 p.m. Emergency run. Send me a message, let me know, and then we'll get somebody on top of it within the next 24 to 48 hours. So that communication was key. Our goal was to build out a real estate, I guess, empire, for lack of better words. I wanted the same thing many investors want. I wanted financial freedom. I wanted financial independence. I wanted to not be tied to this W-2 job, especially coming out of my experience at General Motors. Watching people who had dedicated their lives to this company get let go with no plan B. So that always burned deep in me from that moment. I also watched my father, go on strike, a union guy. I watched him go on strike multiple times growing up. I watched the recession of the, 2000 coming out of the dot-com boom. And my mother, get let go of her job and struggle to find employment. So I never bought into this notion that I got a great job and I was going to be set. So the real estate was really my safety net. And I couldn't just live off of one property. It was always about accumulating more. And that's why I ran into the issue, because in going through that process, if I was saving $100,000 to invest in a property, the problem was I didn't have a plan to rinse and repeat it, or to create the cash flow that I needed to really elevate it. Because I wasn't doing like deep rehabs or anything like that. We were buying and hold properties. So I was getting, maybe equity rich, but I still didn't have the cash flow. I still didn't have the protection that I needed from a job loss. And quite frankly, I was getting to the point where my wife was a busy professional. I was a busy professional. And as we started to grow our family, this became a drain. And I would tell everyone here that if you want to invest, there's two strategies that I will jump on the table and tell everybody to consider. If you're young, if you don't have, kids, if you got flexibility, house hack. If you can house hack, get in there. The financing is phenomenal. If you're okay living like a renter for a little bit longer, it's a phenomenal strategy to start building wealth. You can rinse and repeat that every year. You just have to stay in for 366 days. And then if you're able to create enough equity, you can get out of that loan and do it over again. That is the number one strategy if you're starting out. The second, though, is the one that took me much longer to learn about. And it's not buying rentals. It's not flipping houses. It's actually investing passively in larger apartment deals. And the reason is I became a busy professional. I had a demanding job as an executive. My wife is an executive. We've got our two boys. And at this moment, I'm now trying to manage this rental portfolio. I have flip projects going. And I'm literally just sitting there giving a half-assed effort to everyone and everything in my life. I'm a average at best husband. I'm an okay dad now. I'm a good employee, but I'm looking at the clock in my calendar to see when I can take a longer lunch break so I can shoot over to the property and make sure the contractor is doing what they're supposed to do. I mean, I'm doing all this every day. I'm just juggling all these balls in the air, and it just made me really ineffective. And I would tell anyone who is looking to invest in real estate, you don't have to put all of that on your shoulders. Most of us do this to create the freedom that we want, to spend the time with the people we love, doing the things we love. And I found myself with a second job. So I went from trying to create freedom to taking away a little bit of freedom that I did have. And I spent my evenings running around the city, to Home Depot or talking to contractors or checking in on jobs. And I was having very little time with my own family and my young kids. So I tell everyone that think about passive investing, especially if you've got a demanding job, if you like your job, you have a well-paying job. Passive investing gives you the benefits of owning the real estate without the headaches and responsibilities of being a landlord. And I just don't think enough people know that you can actually invest in these kind of deals and get those benefits. So that's something that we try to make sure we tell people about so that they don't make the same mistakes or go through some of the same trials and tribulations that we went through with our investing journey.
So you house hack, decide to ramp that up a bit, and then you make a decision to move into passive investing. So what was your first foray into that world?
And what was that like?
So we did not actually invest passively. We discovered it to work with other passive investors. And my aha was, wow, I wish I would have known that when I was building up this portfolio, because it would have been a better way for me to build that portfolio, leaning on someone with more experience. These larger deals, the reason that they are so attractive is they actually have less risk. And I know this sounds a little crazy, right? If you're buying a 2-unit building versus a 200-unit building, conventional wisdom for most people would say, hey, that 200 has more risk. In reality, the 2-unit has more risk because one, you only have 2 units. Your property is either 100% occupied, 50% occupied, or 0% occupied, right? You don't have that range of predictability. Two, you're dealing with, really everyday type of workers, right? For maintenance, for contractors, for any of those kind of things. You're dealing with people who are not necessarily professionals. You're trying to get the best prices you can get. And then you're managing it because you may not be enough capital or enough revenue to bring on a professional property manager. And if there is, now you're giving anywhere between 6 and 10% of profits to a property manager. And a lot of people don't really want to do that. So when you're managing a 2-unit, it takes up a lot of your time. You got to be the expert. And the reality is most people are not the expert. Versus you go big to a 200-unit, well, now you're talking about a professional asset management team, professional property management. You have an on-site property manager who lives at the property, is paid to only focus on that property. You have maintenance people who are the same. They live at that property and manage it. And just the sheer scale allows you to play the law of averages. Any given month, you may have a certain amount of people moving in, moving out. But if you've got a 200-unit property, you're never going to be at zero unless something catastrophic happens, right? You're typically going to be anywhere between 90 and 95% occupied, which allows you to plan accordingly versus, again, that duplex. You got a furnace that goes out that could wipe out your profits for the year, for 2 years. Right. If you have a furnace go on a 200-unit, it's usually planned for. It's a part of the CapEx budget. And because the numbers are so big, you can anticipate all this up front and just have that capital available as a cost of doing business versus on a duplex. You're kind of praying and hoping, you're praying and hoping that you don't get any major expense to wipe out your profits. On a 200-unit, it's just par for the course. You're expecting certain maintenance things to happen each year. You plan for it.
You almost plan for it. You buy an old property with some reserves, knowing you're going to be upgrading over time and trying to upgrade the property as well as raise the rents and make more profit as a result of that. In some cases.
That's exactly it. And it's part of the business plan because, if you try to do that on a single family house, it'll be hard to get the numbers to work, right? If you plan to replace the roof or you plan to replace the HVAC systems and all that on a house that is otherwise fine working, you're competing with other, we call them retail investors, right? Every regular investors, maybe somebody wants to live at that property. Well, they're not walking into it saying, hey, I need $50,000 just sitting in the bank, And as investors, that's what we're kind of doing is we're saying, hey, we're going to do that. And we're also going to compete with other investors. So we're all looking at this deal in a similar way. because when you're buying these larger properties, you see it as a business. It's not emotional, it's business. It's about revenue, it's about the net operating income. And you're able to make these decisions and buy based on the cash that this property is producing. So for me, it's like everything I just talked about, you don't have to actually know or master yourself, right? The benefit is go align yourself with someone who understands that space and you leverage their expertise. On a duplex, you can't really do that. I mean, you can hire a mentor or get a coach, but there's not enough revenue to share that with someone else who's got more experience than you. So it's better on these bigger deals to go lean on someone with that experience, let them run the day to day, and you're more of a benefactor of it.
So you went at some point, from being an investor in these types of deals to actually syndicating these deals. Right? So how did that happen?
Well, we as we kind of realized, hey, this is the path that we want to go down. I brought on help. I was not going to jump into this space without bringing on professionals who had more experience than me. So we did that. And just through networking, we built some really solid relationships, and we had a hard time finding a deal starting out. I think for us, when we were looking at building our own portfolio, I could settle for certain returns because it was just me. But when we're working with other partners, there's got to be enough, cash flow and returns for them, and still enough for me to make it make sense. So it's harder to find those kind of deals. Fast forward, we ended up partnering with a group out of Texas that we had gotten to know really, really well, and they were acquiring a 192 unit asset in San Antonio, Texas. So we partnered with them on that and became general partners on that deal. And we had been working our own investor network, building up our database of potential investors, and we brought that opportunity to those investors. And when we talk about what we're doing now, syndication and working with these apartment deals, it's just a matter of pooling resources together. So we have been talking to people who wanted to invest. Maybe there's one guy who is considering buying a duplex or investing in a deal like this, and his decision making comes down to, do you really want to manage a duplex? Do you want to be the guy driving around town, picking up the rent, figuring out who the plumber is going to be, dealing with those things? Or for similar terms, do you invest in a deal like this? So he ultimately decided to invest with us. We had multiple people who did. So we really worked on working with people, helping them understand the benefits of apartment investing, why we do what we do, and really getting a sense of who we're able to help. Because I think the thing that many folks don't understand is that certain people really benefit from investing in these deals. And if you are a full-time real estate professional, you should seriously consider investing in whether it be a syndication deal or commercial real estate. And the reason is the tax benefits. And for full-time real estate professionals, you're able to take full advantage of the tax benefits and write off what we call paper losses, but it's called depreciation. So it's in the tax code, and it's pretty common for all commercial real estate. But you can take these losses and write them off. You can write them off completely against your income. So if you're a real estate agent or another full-time professional, you can take the regular income you make from doing these deals and selling and getting your commissions, and you can actually get a paper loss. And on most of the deals we do, that paper loss is anywhere between 50% of someone's investment and up to like 80% of their investment. So said differently, if you were to invest $100,000 in one of our deals, you are likely to receive a paper loss or a negative K1 for negative $50,000 up to negative $80,000. And you can apply that loss against your actual earned income through your real estate dealings. So it's when you understand the tax code and some of these things that are available, it's great for most people, but for specific folks, real estate professionals, business owners, they can really take advantage of this. And those are the folks who really get excited about doing business with us.
So now you went from investing in these kinds of deals to bringing other people in on these deals. And in that, you play a bit of a role as a teacher or coach or such. So explain how that transition happened and what's that look like today?
Yeah. So, I mean, we basically work with investors, and we do everything from helping them on board, getting them, some knowledge on what to expect. We do a lot of education. We have our podcast, which we had you on, Bill, Target Market Insights, where we talk about, investing strategies, about multifamily and things of that nature. But we try to make sure people understand what to expect, what's the process. And in a lot of ways, I'm investor relations. So they have questions, they have any concerns. We talk through what that process is, what they can expect, and we manage those relationships so we can grow. So, just like you would do any other investment, you'd have kind of an advisor or an investor relations contact. That's really the role that we play. We've helped, tons of families at this point, and we want to continue to grow and help more. But we've partnered with them on those 1,000 units that I mentioned before.
Fantastic. And what markets are you invested in or playing in today?
We like the Southeast and the Midwest. And when I say the Midwest, they're growing markets like Indianapolis, Louisville, Kentucky, Cincinnati, Columbus. And then in the Southeast, we love like Texas and Florida and Georgia, the Carolinas. So we like that region of the country because we like to look at things like population growth. We like to look at job growth. We like to look at industry diversification. And I lived in Chicago for 8 years. Love the city of Chicago. The challenge with a city like Chicago, we're doing these big deals, and I think California applies here, and so does New York. The regulations make it very difficult to do business.
Really?
And if you're buying a 2-unit, that's one thing. I know, right? Shocker. If you're buying a 2-unit, not as big of a deal. But if you're buying a 100-unit property, we talked about predictability, and what part of the reasons that we talked about these larger deals being less risky is the predictability of it. Well, if an ordinance can come out of nowhere and slap us with a fee, or taxes shoot up, 50%, or they tell us that there's now rent control or whatever the case may be, right? That has a huge impact on our ability to implement the business plans that we come up for our properties. So because of those reasons, we avoid those kind of markets. There's nothing wrong with them if you like those markets. I'm not a guy who likes to crap on markets. I lived in Detroit for 4 years, five years. I got a soft spot in my heart for Detroit. I lived in Chicago. I spent a lot of time in New York. I spent a lot of time in California for work. I love those markets. Doesn't mean I want to invest in those markets.
Yeah.
Native California, I know exactly what you mean.
It's about, live where you want to live. Cali's a great place to live. It's beautiful. You just talked about going swimming, right? It's a great place to live. But your investment dollars are not based on emotion. They shouldn't be. They should be based on protecting your capital and looking at the metrics. I mean, California is losing people. So many people during the recession or during the pandemic moved from California to Arizona to Texas. So you have to follow these things because, listen, people like to make investing really complex. There's certainly a lot of metrics that we look at and all that kind of stuff, but this is real simple. We're trying to understand one thing. Will demand be higher in the future than it is today for an apartment building? And I have a lot of data points that I use to help inform that, but population is a big driver. If people are moving to a place, then the only option is, rents are going to go up for supply and demand purposes, or they're going to have to build more apartments to meet the demand. And when you have a market that's losing population, like some of the markets in California, like my city of, Chicago, and I'm from Cleveland, so Cleveland's another one of those cities. That's a factor you got to look into, because how are you going to charge more rents if less people want to live in the apartments because they're moving? So it's just, I try to take the emotion out when it comes to business, but, live where you want to live. Doesn't say anything wrong about the city or the market. But when you're investing, I like to just take out some of those factors and really mitigate those risks, focus on the places where you can do business, do exactly what you want to do for the property, and make sound investment decisions.
So, we have an expert in a couple things. One is investing in general, moving from zero to building a nice, large portfolio. So if you're interested in syndication, multifamily, or I know you also have a coaching program for people who want to get investment. Here's a chance for free to ask a question. Ask a question, put the chat box, raise your hand. Just to recap real quick, in passing, John mentioned his podcast is Target Market
Market Insights is the name of it, and it's on. Where do you send people to see you? On Apple iTunes, or where do you?
Apple. Yeah, I think most people probably listen on Apple. So I would say either Apple Podcasts, but it's also on Spotify or Google Podcasts if you use either one of those.
So I put the link in the notes here if you want to find that. But again, it's Target Market Insights, and I was really impressed when I saw it, getting ready for him, and really enjoyed the time we spent together. So if you have a question, jump in and feel free to ask a question. If you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook as well, I can check the chats along there and participate if you want to from that as well. So let me ask you. Tell me about coaching. I saw on your website. At least you talked about coaching. What does that look like? Who is like the right person for that kind of program? And you put me up to this, and I don't get any money from it. I want people to get help. I think there's different flavors of help, and so I want people to get the right solution. You're going to be the right solution for some people, and I'd like to make that happen. Just looking from that position. Who's the right person for coaching you're going to help them be effective with?
Well, thank you for that, Bill. You know, when we think about the people we are uniquely positioned to help, it's someone who is already a real estate investor, you know, and let me step back a little bit. There's various coaching programs out there. And as you're looking at where you're at and where you want to go, I think you owe it to yourself to think about how do you get from where you're at today to where you want to be in the future. And if coaching is an answer, which I'm a firm believer in coaching. I have 2 coaches. I just did a 2-hour session with one of my coaches earlier this week at his house, and it was amazing. And I got some great insights to propel my business forward. So I'm a big fan of coaching. When you're looking for coaching, you got to understand what you're trying to solve. You know, if you just want to learn multifamily, yes, there's multiple people who can do that. But again, going back to my story, you may realize that, hey, you actually want to do a different portion. You don't want to invest 20, 30 hours a week to learn the business per se. Maybe you really just want to, you know, get going, put your money to work and get a return. So just think about where you're at and what you're hoping to get out of it. The people we are uniquely positioned to help are folks who already have some real estate experience. If you've invested in some single family, some duplexes, you've done some flip projects, you've invested passively in some deals, I think it helps to have some experience. So we're talking the same language and you can hit the ground running. If you have no experience, I would probably not recommend my coaching program to you. There are other programs that can help you get up to speed, but my program is a little bit more of an accelerator program than kind of an entry level program from that standpoint. And the reason is I spent 15 years in marketing, and we talk a lot about those marketing strategies and tactics to help grow your business. If you are looking to, excuse me, if you're looking to find deals, attract capital for deals, build a personal brand that allows you to have people ready to invest with you, that takes a lot of work. And a lot of that's marketing. It has nothing to do with multifamily. You know, certainly there are things that are universal, but that's a different skill set. And building a personal brand, being personable, doing stuff like this, right? Coming out, talking to folks like Bill, you know, launching a Zoom and spreading this across to, you know, hundreds of people. Not everybody wants to do that. But the reality is that if you want to attract capital for deals, you're going to have to build a presence. You're going to have to let people know this is what you do. Like, you can't expect people just to walk in and throw money at you just because you decided you wanted to invest. So I was very reluctant to do some of the stuff we're doing now. I've always been the guy behind the brand. I've been behind the camera. I've been on set doing the shoots and making sure everything was going right. I haven't had to be the brand. I haven't had to be the person on camera. I haven't had to be the person critiquing myself. So that took a little while for me to get comfortable with. So we try to help people understand that aspect and do what makes you comfortable, but also stretches your skill set, right? If you are a natural networker, well, let's figure out how to take advantage of that. How do you create the systems and processes to help you drive a real business? And then certainly we get into the multifamily foundation, what to look for in a deal, what our strategy is, how to protect yourself whenever evaluating a deal, what to look for in the market, the kind of markets you want to avoid, all of those kind of things. So anyone who is interested in, has some experience and is, you know, really ready to take the next step forward, you can learn more about that program at Capital Impact Club. So capitalimpactclub.com, and learn more about the coaching program there.
appreciate that you're
clear.
Because I think when you're focused on
when you're
something,
focused on
you
something, you can be really good
you
at
try
it.
to achieve something for everybody. You can be better than average, but that doesn't get you much in this world. So I appreciate you delineating that. I noticed on your webpage that you promote, or you're the host of the Chicago Multifamily Club. What's that about?
What's that about?
Yeah, so the Chicago Multifamily Club is a networking event. We've been doing that for a few years now, probably 3 or 4 years now. We've been doing that, and it's a monthly meetup. We just had our last one on Monday, and we meet once a month. We've been doing it virtual for a long time. We just kind of got back to in-person meetings, but it's a way for multifamily investors, both folks who are looking at 2 units, 3 units, residential multifamily, to folks who are looking to invest in these larger apartment deals that I'm doing. We can get together and we can talk about investing. And the reason it's so important for me is I learned a ton from being around other investors. And I want to applaud everybody who's here with us tonight, because you have to surround yourself with people in this business. And I don't know if everyone's, professional or what, but when I started as an investor, I didn't have a lot of people to talk to. I didn't know anybody who was investing in real estate like that. And I would doubt myself at times. You'd read a book or you go on a website and get it all excited, but you start talking to people in your network and they would look at you like you were crazy. So I needed to be around people like this to reassure me that, hey, no, this is exactly it. This is real. This person did it. This is how they did it. And as you surround yourself with those people, it becomes a little bit easier to move forward and know that you've got the reassurances there. So the Chicago Multifamily Club is a way for us to both give back and continue to grow by surrounding ourselves with people. And many of those folks are starting out. Maybe they're, doing that first house hack where they've got their first 3 unit or their first commercial property, but they're looking to scale. And I can give them some tips on things we've learned along the way. I can help them network and connect with contractors or other people who can help them with their business. But on the same token, we have attendees who are way more experienced than me, of 20, 30, 40 years of experience, who have owned thousands and thousands of units. So it's amazing to be able to sit with them and pick their brain. And, hey, what was it like when this recession hit? How did you navigate this? And to surround yourself with that kind of a cohort and network, it's great because it gives you the resources you need to scale. We've got about 1,800 members of the Chicago Multifamily Club. Wow. And when I started, there was not an event dedicated for the city of Chicago and multifamily investors. There was plenty of stuff for flipping and wholesaling, and there was, some general real estate stuff, especially out in the suburbs. But I got tired of trekking an hour out for, a RIA meeting out to the suburbs of Chicago. So we launched it because, again, I had my 2 boys and I found myself running around the city. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe if I create something here that only takes me 15 minutes to get to, and I can attract people to me, it's a little bit easier. And I don't know if you're picking up on it, but that's a theme for me, is attraction as opposed to running around. So I've really pivoted what I do to focus on how do I attract the network, the people that I want to be around me, as opposed to running out and trying to figure out where they're at. The podcast, the coaching, the meetups. A lot of what that does, or the reason we do those things, is so we can attract the people who want to be a part of our lives and our business, as opposed to me trying to figure out how do I go hunt business and me going into sales pitch mode. I don't like the sale. I don't do the sale pitch thing, but I'm happy to share what I do with people so that if someone feels that I can help them, we can build a real relationship from there.
I think the goal in business when you start out is you have to go out and find people and hunt people. But you want to get to a point where you're well known enough, people want to come to you. I know my real estate business kind of flipped around this year to where I spend all my day. I work hard every day.
I work hard every day, 5 days a week, 5.5 days a week.
But I'm saying all day. Mostly talk to people not me checking out people that I want to talk to. Because if you want to talk to me, we have a relationship. We have credibility already. You have the sales. People call me up and say, I already know what you do. He lists my house for me. It's a whole different discussion. Some cold call, which I can do. I'm a grinder. It's nice not to put your time there.
And Bill, think about it like this. In my business, we're entrusting investors to invest $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 with us. I can't cold call someone to invest six figures with me. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be.
We can, but it's a lot of phone calls.
It's a lot of phone calls. You can do it.
Well,
it's a lot
you
of
can do it, but
a lot of
listen,
phone calls.
if I call someone and say, "Hey, we got a deal. Do you want to invest 100K with me?" I mean, look, I don't know. A lot of people are gonna be like, "Sure, man. You know what? I had no idea what I was gonna do with this money. I'm so glad you called me, right? Out of the blue. I was sitting here about to eat dinner. And now I'm just going to go ahead and write this $100,000.
Honey, John's on the phone. He wants her 100,000.
He wants her 100,000.
Yeah. So cold calling, no. If it's a warm lead, a hot lead, right? If we've established a bit of rapport, and we kind of have a sense of how I might be able to help you, that's one thing. But if if I'm like those robo dialers and I just call and say, "Hi, we've got a new apartment deal. Do you want to invest 50K?" I'm like, dude, lose my number and get away from me. I'm reporting you to the authorities.
John.
So I mean, you've got to build a real rapport here.
Pardon my interruption, John. I came in a few minutes late. I apologize. My name's Dave. But I have a couple of questions for you. First of all, I didn't hear everything, your entire presentation, but I have a sense of what you're saying. Where are you located geographically right now?
I live in Cincinnati.
Okay. And and forgive me if I'm going over what you may have spoken about, but are your projects on a nationwide basis? Are they more locally around where you are geographically?
Midwest and Southeast. So Indianapolis, Kentucky, Tennessee, Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, and then Texas as well.
Okay. And so what kind of historical returns have you been at, on an average basis, annualized, are you generating?
Yeah. So on an annual, like cash flow, we typically do a 7 or 8% preferred return on the cash flow on deals that go full cycle. What that means is that we bought a property, we implemented our business plan, we sold the property. So those deals that we, have sold off and no longer own, all of them have delivered at least a 15% internal rate of return. So a couple of them in the low 20s, many of them in the higher teens than that, but all of them at least at 15%.
Okay, and I appreciate you indulging me here, because I have access to capital that might be able to help you out, that wouldn't infringe on the capital that I'm raising for my real estate projects myself. Okay. I mean, there's plenty out there to spread around, is my point. So they're multi-family, so there are no single-family homes. Is that what you're?
No, we only buy multifamily. Yeah.
Okay. About how many units are like the low end and the high end?
I mean, we closed on an 81 unit in July. We're buying a 104 unit. Well, my attorney gets his paperwork together, hopefully in the next 2 weeks. But those are newer and larger properties. So one's an $8 million deal, the other's a $12 million deal. Okay. We like B-class assets. So I don't like the super luxury high-end stuff, and I don't like the C minus type stuff. We really like desirable, but still a bit affordable for residents. That's kind of the area we like to play in, and a little bit newer. We're really feeling like with cap rates being compressed, and essentially all that means is demand has gotten so high that people are willing to take less of a return. So because of that, we feel like it's a good time to get better quality assets as opposed to simply paying a premium for older properties.
Okay. Oh, so I think there's a reason why you and I might want to talk offline here. I don't want to take up the entire time.
Please, let's exchange information, and we can. I'll put my email address in the chat box. If you wouldn't mind, just shoot me a note, and we can set up some time to further talk.
I'll put mine in there as well, John.
In the old days, if this was a real life meeting and we met together, you guys would get together, at least chat over a cup of coffee. So, good, do that.
Right, we'd be having this would not, we wouldn't hang up and try to reconvene at some future time.
Very good.
Right.
Good.
The good old days.
So we're getting towards the end here. I want to be mindful that we probably have somebody who's never invested in a property before, wants to get started, has been looked at it, been on Bigger Pockets podcast, researched and listened, but haven't pulled the trigger. Here you have a guy who did it. Here you have a guy who did it years ago and went from that first deal to really enjoying some of the fruits that you have a chance to ask him a question. He has a coaching program. It's not only for new people. Here's your chance to ask him a question for free, either the chat box or raise your hand, jump in, and take advantage of this opportunity if you want to.
And while we're waiting for that, I'll say too, if if you're remotely intrigued by syndication or apartment investing and even JV deals, right, working with other investors, I do have a sample deal on my website, and I find that people really like that because it helps you get a sense of what to look for or what to expect. And when I was first getting into the syndication space, one of the challenges I faced is I didn't know what to put into an offering, right? I could tell you like, hey, here's the numbers or here's what I like about it, but it was harder to figure out like what should I be communicating about a deal. So if you want to learn more about that, whether you want to be active or passive, you can check that out at casmancapital.com/sample deal. And I'll drop that in the chat box too. But you'll also get our newsletter, so you can get some other updates from us. But I find it as a really good resource to help you get grounded in what to look for in a deal.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, well,
I tell you guys, the more you participate,
get out of this.
And I know we got some questions in the chat box that we've already covered.
It looks like Angela, you have a client with some cash. You might want to talk to John and Dave because I think both of them are sources of investment options for you as well. So Angela, if you need the contact info for anybody here on this call, feel free to reach out to me. I'll make that happen.
I'd be happy to talk to you, Angela.
Great. Okay. So let's just
recap again. And John, the best way to reach you is at your website, casmancapital.com.
On your website, you have a schedule appointment. The Casman Capital is if you're interested in being an investor into your multifamily program specifically. That's not the coaching program. That's more the investment side of it.
That's right. Casman Capital is the investor side. This is the site you have up here is the coaching side.
Oh, okay. So which is the one I want to have?
So which is the one I want to have?
Casman Capital is the other one. Yeah.
Don't listen to them. There you go. Casman Capital.
There you go.
So passive income to
pursue your passions. And here's a sample deal right there on the page. And
you fill the information. You'll send that to you, and you'll be able to get that. And he talks about how it works and what they do. Nice website. I imagine that's your wife.
Yes.
Now we know the secret here.
I
interviewed the wrong person.
In your house.
But she available.
Okay, well, pretty much.
Only 10 years?
Yeah, 10 years.
You guys are busy.
Good for you. I'm approaching 30.
Oh, wow. All right. I got to pick your brain on that too. Then we talk.
Well, I don't know. There's not much here to cover the chickens. So come on. Hey, but all kidding aside, John, are you okay giving out your mobile number or something or a phone number to call?
Sure. Yeah. I have no problem. The cell is, I'll say it and you can type it, but it's 937-361-8072. Okay. And feel free to, shoot me a text or whatever's easiest. I mean, one of the things that and if you're ever looking to invest with people, one of the things you want to look for is whether or not they're accessible. And that doesn't mean 24 hours. Don't call somebody, 10 o'clock at night just to ask them about silly questions. But, you want to be able to get in touch with somebody. If you're going to invest money with someone, you want them to return your phone calls, even if it's bad news. So I pride myself on being accessible. I've had this number for 20 years. So I've told people, if you've ever had my number, you still have my number. I haven't changed it in 20 years.
I feel it's not
even accessible.
I'm not hiding from anybody. Right? I'm
exactly.
on the phone a lot.
Yeah. I'm on the phone a lot. I'm on meetings a lot. Anybody who knows me knows I rarely answer the phone, but I always will return the call. At least with a text. As quick as I'm able to.
But I'm not hiding from anybody.
I haven't been sued.
Nobody's chased me down.
There's no process server trying to catch me.
My home address is available.
My office is available.
I don't have anything to hide.
I don't have anything to hide. I do keep a loaded gun in the house, but that's
I live in Los Angeles. Okay. Casman Capital Group is if you invest passively and works with the details. Casman Impact Club is if you're interested in, again, this is not for new investors. This is for an investor who wants to step up his game, get into syndication, get into passive income, and thinks that John would be a good contact or a good coach for helping him do that, a good impact on your business. He goes through that in detail. His podcast, Target Insights, available on Apple, and all other podcast places. John, when people ask you, I'm a brand new investor or want to be, where would you refer them to? What coaching company or service or resource do you recommend for people who get started?
If you're brand new, do not pay for coaching.
I agree.
Again,
I hate that.
It may sound counterintuitive for someone who coaches, but listen, I'm not one of those guys who tells you go hire coaching. Coaching should be to solve specific problems. Yeah. So if you are brand new, I will listen to podcasts. I would get on Bigger Pockets. It's a phenomenal resource. Yes. I spent a lot of time early on Bigger Pockets, just getting to know people, getting questions answered, figuring out how to do everything from signing a lease to the stuff we talked about earlier, right? 60 days notice. How does this work in Chicago? All of that, connecting with people, networking. So spend your time doing that. I agree. Then I would not consider coaching until I knew what I wanted to solve and those free resources were no longer sufficient. If you're trying to raise $1 million, it's going to be hard to find free resources that are going to give you the blueprint you need to be successful doing that. Not to mention, if you're trying to raise $1 million, you're now playing with real money. You're playing with other people's money. And now it becomes serious. At least the way I look at it, it's one thing for me to play around with my money while I figure this out. I'm not going to mess around with somebody else's money. So if you think from that standpoint, if you're looking to partner with other people, you now have a fiduciary responsibility to surround yourself and educate yourself in a manner that allows you to be a true steward of somebody else's capital. So that's when I would look to go to coaching. Or if you just hit a wall, if you're a flipper and you flip 5 houses for the last 5 years, and you're like, damn, I really want to get to 10 or 15, and you just can't seem to get there, that would be a good time to hire a coach. But I think you want to be pretty specific on the problem you want to solve when you're going to pay for somebody, because otherwise, how else do you know if you did it? How else do you know if you got value?
How do you know if you got return for your investment?
How do you know? How do you know? If you just go to somebody's program, and the thing I hate, and I've seen people pay $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for coaching programs to just realize they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? Wow, that's what this is. I think I just want to do this. Like, so you spent $50,000 to find out you actually didn't want to be an active investor. So I'm a fan of, if you can get free resources, or again, if you've got the capital, that's a little different if you want to shorten the curve. But again, you need to be specific on what you're solving for. There's a guy who's really well known, so I won't say his name. I met him when he was first coming into the industry, and I knew he was going to kick ass because the day I met him, he told me exactly what he was looking for and why he hired the coach that we both had worked with. And I knew he was going to kill it because he had intentionality with everything he was doing. He already had kind of a vision. He just didn't know how to do it. He knew what he wanted to do. He just didn't know how to do it. So once he got here's how you do what you want to do, he took off, hit the ground running. It was amazing. So, you got to figure some of this out yourself. I tell people that mentors are not magicians. You cannot, put in half the work and expect to get all these great results. No one's going to make, I can't make, multi-millionaires show up and want to invest with you. That just doesn't work that way. You got to put in the reps. You have to put in the work, and people don't want to hear that. And if you aren't going to commit to that, you probably shouldn't hire a coach, or you're going to be disappointed. And then you're going to be one of those people who says, oh, coaching doesn't work. It does work. It works extremely well if you work and if you know what you're solving for and what you're looking for. Because sometimes you do hire the wrong coach because you weren't clear on what you were looking for.
That's just great input. I used to run a coaching business. I got out of it because people would pay me and do half the work and expect results. I'd say, if you bake a cake, it says an hour, you put it for half an hour. Are you surprised that it's not a cake? What do you think you're going to get?
What do you think you're going to get at half an hour? You're not going to get something that's edible. So I don't know. Some people like to eat cake.
Hey, so there you go. We have
John, and we talked about his.
Just to share one last time.
So
info up in case you want to reach out to him. We have the Chasm Capital. If you want to invest passively in multifamily in the market. He talked about, and he has here his coaching program. I'm sorry, the Chasm Capital Group. Coaching program. Want to get involved. There is. I didn't went backwards, didn't I?
If you go to the main site, the main site will take you anywhere else from there. So just go to chasmcapital.com. You can get to anywhere else from there.
I'm so sorry, made it look.
Yeah, no worries.
I never rehearsed this.
Obviously, I'm not getting paid for this.
If I do, I get paid. Kaz become a competition. Coaching has his link to his podcast, and we really appreciate him being on here today. John, just really fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Just as we wrap up, I want to just point out a couple opportunities. Again, Thursday, 5 o'clock.
Thursday, 5 o'clock. We have our
Agent Circle Network.
Agent Circle Network. That's at the
LA Brewery, which is on La Brea, just south of Wilshire. Really hot. Really hot. Great craft brew things going on there. If you're on this call,
you text me.
You show up, I'll buy you free beer.
I'll buy you free
tacos and all kinds of food.
And
then mark your calendar on Halloween, Sunday, October 31st, all days, the LA Real Estate Brand Expo at the Scribble Center. Free registration, free parking. And there'll be probably 500 or 600 people there. The same group had an event Thursday night with 200. We're pairing up with two other groups, 500 to 600. I forget how many, I want to say 100 vendors. Speakers all day long. A lot of great free resources on how to get involved in investing for instance. Love to see you there. You can participate. Again, John, I don't know how to thank you enough for participating, sharing today. Kind of your story and your path and being willing to help other people. I really appreciate it. On behalf of everybody here,
thank you so much.
Bill, thank you for having me. And listen, I appreciate the opportunity to just share more. And, if you take nothing else away from this conversation, it's that there's a lot of opportunities if you're willing to serve other people. Partnerships are one way to do that. Certainly there's education, all that other stuff, but appreciate you, Bill, providing the platform and, figure out how you can help other people. And that's really the best thing you can do to scale and grow.
My first coach was Zig Ziglar. Anything you win in life, if you help enough other people, you what they want. And so real estate is a great opportunity to do that, both coaching people in terms of helping people in your business as well. So thanks again, everybody. Every Tuesday, 3 o'clock, we do this. 3 o'clock Pacific time, 6 Eastern, Real Estate Investing Zoom.com. Next time. Thanks so much.
Bill, sorry to interrupt. Will you be posting the links for both of those events?